Hello, everyone. Welcome to Three Person Perspective Podcast. I'm Morris.
And I'm Austin. This is our very first podcast ever.
Exactly.
And today we're going to talk about something related to mental health. You have met people who you think are control freaks, but you can't resist, right? It's sometimes in the back of your mind that you're being manipulated, but you don't consciously know it because you assume that you are the problem in the situation.
That may be one of the biggest mental problems faced by people of this generation these days. We're 20 and we have had such problems at least once in our lives.
Totally, man, totally.
So today we're going to be sharing our experiences of how it was like to be gaslit, how we overcame the issues, and also we're going to be talking about the facts that we learned about this topic.
I'm not sure that this podcast might help you get rid of such mental issues, but we want to remind you of mental manipulation and also want you to know that we're all on the same boat.
You are not alone.
Yes, we're not alone.
If you're new to the channel, welcome and please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you like the video, don't forget to give a thumbs up.
And thank you very much for listening to our very, very first podcast. And before we dive into any details, I want to tell you a little bit about manipulation.
Okay, that's interesting. I'd love to know that.
Okay, manipulation is like a puppet show where a controller controls the wooden toy with a thread in his desired way, but the wooden toy can perform whatever the way he wants it to do, like without having the toy distorted mentally. But we humans can also control another human, not with physical threats, but with mental threats. So when we're getting manipulated, we are mentally forced to think in another person's point of view, with our own opinions being denied. Actually, we're clouded by the illusion that makes us think that we're wrong somehow, and sometimes in a more subtle way, in order to notice the manipulation. At that time, we start to believe that he is right, and at least we don't think we're wrong. There are many examples to help you realize that we're literally living in a world of manipulation.
Yeah, I agree with that. The first example I'd like to give is how marketers persuade a particular group of consumers into purchasing their product.
Okay, what do you mean?
This is quite obvious in this digital age. Advertisements and jingles and stuff like that are all forms of sudden influence over the public. This scenario becomes even worse when those marketers want to gain profit out of an awful situation.
Yeah.
For example, when a particular case is trending over a social media platform, such as a scandal where a particular type of product is the subject, those who want to gain profit will try to promote the product in an unpleasantly humorous way.
So you mean marketers are trying to promote their products in a sexier way, right?
Yeah, and some misleading products whose advertisement guarantee that your pimples will be gone or your crush will like your bag
Okay.
are lies. But people using them find it unsatisfying to try out products that fail their expectations. This is how marketing strategies attempted to gain publicity looks like these days. I find it quite disgusting.
Yeah, somehow disgusting. Okay, we gotta see the next steps because we apparently don't stop at manipulation. We can see some really awful behavior that comes along with manipulation. And even it isn't ample enough to gain power over someone else mentally. And we can see where this is going, right? So, manipulative people can show abusive behaviors mentally. And in this topic, we're not talking about people who physically abuse others. And it's those who abuse people mentally that we'll be talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but there's a song called All Too Well by Taylor Swift, which is a short film starring Sadie Sink and
Yeah.
Dylan O'Brien, I think.
Taylor.
So,
Okay, yeah.
in that short film, they are a couple who have a wide age gap, so they don't hold the same opinions and they often fight over trivial things. At a party, the girl wants attention from him, but he keeps talking with his old friends. So they have a fight afterwards where she says she wanted to be paid attention, but what he replies is that she is acting ridiculous, she is selfish, she is being over dramatic. I think this is obviously a form of emotional abuse.
Yes, of course. I mean, man, she might think that she's overreacting to such a trivial thing. That's why we call it being mentally abusive. And she may be reacting, or she may want her boyfriend's attention. I mean, that is not something too much to ask, but that was not a big deal, and he shouldn't have told her like that.
No, 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 he shouldn't.
But there is something we should look at when we're talking about abuse and manipulation. Because people who are really, there are many people who are really obsessed with gaining power over someone called narcissistic.
So, what do you mean by narcissism?
Okay, I mean, people who think they are superior to other people generally like to show off their dominance over someone. It is a lifelong pattern. I mean, so it is a kind of behavior in which some people demand complete obedience from his or her family, friends, and colleagues, and narcissists will strongly disapprove of another person's independence. I mean, we can easily see this kind of person in our community. I mean, like, they will criticize people a lot, and they lied about their own possessions and claim to be superiorly talented to make people support their unfounded claims.
Uh, that's the worst type of person in the world, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
With that being said, some teachers and parents, especially in South Asian countries, can be quite manipulative, of course. In Myanmar, where traditions and culture are often intertwined with Buddhism, for example, parents and teachers are always right, even if they are physically or emotionally damaging to children. So, as a result, if a student talks back or just tries to compromise with a teacher, he or she might be told things like, "You are rude, you are being disrespectful, you will never be successful if you hold such an attitude towards the elder." So not only does it affect our process of making decisions, it also harms our self-esteem. And I've also had an experience of being picked on by a teacher when I was 11 years old. I was in grade 6 and I was designated to take an English proficiency test, but she hoped that the other student would make it to the test, but I got a chance, so she came to hate me for no valid reason. One day, I accidentally dropped on the floor one of the paper sheets where she wrote essays for me, and she came to shoot and kite words at me like, "You are fucking useless. You don't care about my work. You are a piece of shit. You will be eliminated from the preliminary stage if you hold on to this attitude."
Oh my. This was when you were only 11 years old?
Yes.
Oh my. You must have been traumatized, man.
But you know what? I choose to see at the positive side of it because I needed to prove that I was good enough, so I took it as a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, it's somehow true, but when we grow older, we tend to see the dark side of it, and it's more like the reality behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to look at the positive side of a horrible situation, but in fact, we don't want that horrible thing to happen at all from the very start.
Of course, and also she was your teacher, right? And I bet you wouldn't pick on her. I know you.
So even when you can notice what's going on, we can look at the signs that let you know that you're obviously entering gaslight. According to the book named The Gaslight Effect, gaslighting tends to work in stages. At first, it may look like it doesn't even matter, but eventually it becomes a bigger part of your life, preoccupying your thoughts and overwhelming your feelings. Finally, you're trapped in extreme depression, unable even to remember the person you used to be, losing your own point of view and your very own perception. So to break down the stages, the first stage would be the stage where the gaslighter shoots a lot of questions at you. They convince you to accept what they are talking to you without taking your opinions into consideration.
Okay, like let's let's consider we are seeing a couple in which the girl is very friendly, talkative, and easily falling into like in conversation with random people on the road. But for the boy, he is very kind and supportive, but only for his close friends, like close ones. And the boy sees the people as dangerous, notorious, and not trustworthy. And also, he believes that they're being like flirtatious with his girl. So at first, he tries to convince that the world is not working the way she thinks, and they're trying to get her attention away from him. I think that he's just being jealous of how she can easily talk to strangers, but the girl knows that herself that she's not flirtatious and people are not as bad as he thinks. The boy seems to be upset about his girlfriend not accepting his advice. So she immediately knows that she can't change him. So she changes herself into perception of the boys. The perception the boys constantly insisting her to be. So that's the first step of getting yourself into gaslight, and she even begins to doubt her own personality.
Yeah, so early diagnosis is always useful because I think you can easily escape the danger of being gaslit before anything more serious happens. But I want to know if you have ever been in a situation where you are entering the first stage of gaslighting. Have you ever been gaslit?
To my surprise, I used to get into the first stage of gaslight without even noticing it. It was when I was young. I don't remember my exact age, so I tried to accept my mom's bad advice. I know she didn't mean to do it, but it happened, you know. I think it became abusive when I was forced to choose what they wanted me to choose, like career, clothes, and sometimes even toys. I thought that it was normal, but when I grew older, it was so annoying that I didn't get to choose what I wanted. Of course, I have my own perspective on on fashion taste, and I couldn't even bother buying something I like, although it was against what I was told. That paranoia is ever holding me back from doing anything on my own, and it becomes more personal when it's with my mom.
It's terrible, especially with your intimate ones. Obviously, like your parents or your spouse.
Yeah, of course. But parents didn't mean to do that intentionally. They're usually worried about us, but when what we want to do doesn't align with what they want us to do, they can be quite manipulative or abusive. But when it comes to married couple, a partner might want to gain an advantage out of the marriage, so he or she is likely to deceive the other for their own benefits.
So speaking of that, in the movie Gaslight, there is a married couple named Gregory and Paula.
Oh
The
yeah.
guy wants the woman's inheritance so badly that he uses a method called gaslighting. Of course, the movie is where that term came from. So in the movie, he uses the method to deceive the woman in many different ways. First, they are going out after he has given her a brooch, and he makes her doubtful about her memory by doing like this. And the man deliberately creates a situation in which he hides the brooch, but he insists that she's the one who lost it.
Yeah.
A present for you, Paula.
Oh, Gregory. Oh, where did you find anything so beautiful?
It belonged to my mother, and before that to her mother, and now it belongs to you.
Oh, I shall wear it always.
You might lose it. You know, you are inclined to lose things, Paula.
I am? No, I didn't realize that.
Oh, just little things. I'll put it in your bag for
Yes.
safekeeping. There. Now,
Yes.
you'll remember where it is.
Oh, don't be silly. Of course I'll remember.
Oh, I was teasing you, my dear.
Receive it, whereupon the axe descended, severing the head from the torso with one blow, or in unlucky cases, two. Moving to our right, we have a model of the famous rag, the instrument of torture upon which prisoners were stretched, their limbs being frequently torn from their sockets in an effort to...
Oh, Paula, You might give me your brooch so I can have it repaired. What's the matter? Anything wrong?
No.
Oh, Paula, didn't I tell you? How did you come to lose it?
I must have pulled it out with something, I suppose. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, Gregory. Please forgive me.
Oh, forgive, my dear. It's not as serious as that. It's not valuable.
I must have... You did put it in there.
Don't you even remember that?
Yes. Yes, of course I do. Suddenly I'm beginning not to trust my memory at all.
The second stage of the gaslighting is that you finally accept what the gaslighter wants you to believe, and this can affect your self-defense. It's like trying to prove the gaslighter that you are right. And in the movie, the next scene is that she wants to go out alone actually, but she is afraid to be asked by her husband. Eventually, she prioritizes her husband's point of view and she stays home. And she also decides to go to a party, probably trying to prove that she is totally fine, but her husband accompanies her to the party and deceives her again that she's not okay to go out alone and meet people.
My watch is gone. Please control yourself. This in public. Come.
But it's actually her husband's doing, and he makes her feel that way.
The third stage is when you are tired of everything, you're depressed, and this would leave you confused about your decision and worried about how the abuser might think of you. And you are anxious that other people, even outside of the matter, might think of you. I would like to drop a very personal story here. I was also affected by gaslighting when I was at a very young age. I didn't even know I was being controlled by my mom emotionally. She being a very sociable, extroverted and talkative person, wanted me to be exactly like her. But I used to be very slow and calm. I was also stuttering a little bit at the time. That got on her nerves, so she was always scolding me for being like that. And this thing has been affecting me up to this very day. It is no joke. And this is, I would say, gaslighting. What my mom did to me has changed the way I think, behave, and carry out my daily routines. Now, there's always a part of me thinking that if I was slow at something, if I took some more time on even trivial things like going into the bathroom, I would be extremely scolded by my mom. And that definitely is destroying my mental sanity.
I must say that is pretty horrible. But how did you feel about it back then, and how do you feel right now? What do you think of it?
Uh, as a result, I feel rushed and anxious all the time, which is fucking annoying. I lost my character and identity as I was puppeted by my mom, so I want to live in a place that feels comfortable. I always wish to be alone. I'm not even joking.
I know. When you know you are being overly and unnecessarily controlled, your mind is like desperately wanting to liberate yourself from all of these depressing situations. And also, we all know to give ourselves a time to consider our sense of reality without being distracted. So, how do the victims feel? How do the signs that you're being gaslit manifest emotionally? First, I think that this is the most important sign that is prevalent among the victims, which is lower self-esteem. Like, you lose confidence in what you're doing, feel like you're not useful to the world, and stuff like that. And at that time, you can self-reflect and know that someone may be gaslighting you. And another common thing that a victim might do frequently is questioning themselves. It's like, am I being too sensitive? Or like, am I too dramatic? Or maybe like, is my feeling valid? Or am I a liability to everyone? Like this can hugely demolish your identity. You don't want to reveal any kind of emotion to the world, to the people in the world, and you feel uncomfortable surrounded by people and sometimes even your friends. So also the attitude you hold towards the gaslighters may be quite intense, and you are mostly in desperate need of the abuser's approval. And I think this is the thing that make you much more susceptible and prone to be gaslit, and you just prioritize your gaslighter's words rather than keeping your own perception in mind, and sometimes even doubt about it.
Yeah. So as we discussed earlier in the movie, Paula doubts her own ability. She's lost grip of herself, and consequently she has to depend heavily on Gregory in terms of making decisions, going somewhere, etc. So she tends to see everything in Gregory's point of view. She tends to accept that he is always right, and by the same token, she is wrong. She is blinded by the illusion of truth created by the abuser. So we can say that losing your own identity, sense of perception, and self-worth, and seeing everything through someone else's perspective might be the signal that you are being gaslit.
And you cannot confuse it with the empathy. I mean, you know what I mean, like, because empathy is different.
And you know what? As a victim, you might also say sorry frequently, even if you are not wrong in a particular situation. There's of course born from the fact that you have been brainwashed that you will always be wrong. That may also make you feel insecure about a case that is totally not concerned with you, that is not related to you. So even if you overhear something uncomfortable, like if you see a couple having a row or stuff like that, your mind tells you that it is you that is the problem, although you're not concerned with that problem. So that feeling might cut you to the core.
And somehow you might also think that saying sorry will please your partner and would end the conversation in a more subtle way. Actually, that is not how it works. You just give him permission to control more often, and make you more reliant on your partner. Okay, let's see. I will tell you an example. Okay, so when you and your partner got into a fight, and you know that he is the one who is wrong in this situation, but he suddenly stopped talking to you for weeks and came back to you with a very beautiful bouquet and a present for you. Like, will you say sorry to your partner? Like, even you know that he is the one who is wrong in here, and saying that you've been harsh on him and will accept his apology without an apology. I mean, just a present, no explanation for his absence all these weeks. And you might also think that he is even coming back to you with a present to justify the situation. I mean, and I want to ask you that, will you accept every apology by receiving presents and just let it go? Right? So if so, you just make him think that is totally okay when he gives you presents for whatever reason that he has done to you. So that is something we need to be careful about also.
And what's equally important as knowing the signs that you are being gaslit, or how terrible they can be, is knowing how to get out of gaslighting problems, or at least how to mitigate such problems. And obviously, if it becomes too uncomfortable to carry on the relationship, you better leave it. You have to move on and don't feel regretful about it. Of course, if you are so in love with a person who can stop gaslighting, it's hard for you to get over the relationship. But it's never too late. Find someone who can understand you or create an atmosphere in which you feel secure and happy.
Or confide to someone you ultimately trust and listen to the advice.
Or if you can't let go of that gaslighting person easily, you should try compromising with him or her.
Yeah, like by telling your partner how you feel about his or her behavior and how much bad influence his or her behavior has.
Absolutely. Tell them how you feel about the ways you're treated, or and try saying things like, "Don't tell me how to feel. This is how I feel."
Exactly.
If they have ever deceived your mind and memory, just train yourself to be mindful and conscious of your environment and what you do, like where you have put your keys. Like, just make a habit of being aware of your actions so that you may not be easily manipulated by gaslighters next time.
Yeah, like by the way, the speaking of cutting years long relationships, right? You might think that you need more time to think about what you should do, right? And because sometimes gaslighters seem good on on the surface and will make you think that it's not worthwhile cutting the relationships. And at that time, you need courage to prepare your mind and not to be tripped over by the behavior that he is constantly telling you. It's obviously insisting you that you have, but you don't think you have, actually, right? So, but the only thing is that never ever try to win the arguments.
And another option might be to stay silent, but personally, I don't like this because it would only add pressure on you as time passes by because gaslighters won't stop brainwashing you, so it's no use sealing your mouth in that case.
This is somehow our personal, very, very personal views and solutions, but you might find it difficult to follow along with it because you don't think it will work, but it's okay, it's totally fine. So you can just try as many possible ways as you can.
So yeah, speaking of different possible ways, I would like to talk about an activity uh, that focuses
Hmm.
more on introspection, and that would be writing a diary on a daily basis. Not only does it allow you to vent your feelings, but it also helps you with remembering things. You can recall what you have done or what you haven't based on what you write in the diary book. Uh, this will probably save you from falling into the holes created by the abuser. Whenever you have to have a conversation with a gaslighter, you have a right to keep the conversation simple, but and be willing to stop talking to him or her if it's not comfortable anymore. Uh, but I think it may be quite difficult to escape such conversation as the gaslighters are mostly your partners, spouses, parents, or anyone you are in close relationship with.
Yeah, gaslighting can happen anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, but mostly we see this kind of abusive manipulation in relationships. So we will be talking about something outside of the relationships. We are humans. We are emotional beings. So we have friends, family members, job partners, and boss, etc. So we want you to know that anyone can manipulate you emotionally. For example, your new boss praises you to the sky in front of everyone, but as time passes by, you feel like you're no longer competent like you used to be before because you haven't been getting invited to important meetings and not involved in many making decisions. I mean, and when you ask your boss and complain about it, and he tells you that that is not how you think, you just paranoid.
Oh, duplicity, bro, duplicity. Have you ever met people who deceived your mind, like in your social circle? How, and how did it feel?
Yeah, I must say, I also had an incident with, like this kind of incident with my old friend. So we used to be friends for over 10 years, but all, I mean, all these 10 years, when I think about it, It was just an illusion that clouded my mind and my head. So when I was younger, I was a very big introvert, and I got only two friends and barely talked to other classmates. So they knew it very well and used me all the time, and they used a very particular word to manipulate me to justify their faults. So it was, I think you might have guessed it already. It's like, you're my best friend, and I could forgive them all of their sins just because of that words. That's like that compliment. I mean, right? So, but one day they cut ties with me out of the blue, for no reason. It was all Greek to me. I didn't know the reason at all. So, but when I eventually and slowly realized that I was emotionally abused, and due to the fact that I desperately wanted to be their friend, it was like I myself entered into the gaslight tango voluntarily.
That's fucking sick. Sometimes we hold on to some people, taking them for granted. We think they are our trustworthy friends, but I think the word is not that simple. Some people tend to behave as if they were your best friends in order to get something from you. So today, we have talked a lot about one of the biggest mental issues nowadays, which is
Gaslighting.
gaslighting. But ironically, few people take them seriously. Like, many people care about physical health, grooming, and outer beauty, but they often don't bother to give attention to their mental sanity. In fact, it is always important to have a healthy mind, so don't feel bad about ending a relationship, a friendship, or anything toxic.
Anything toxic.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. So, and don't forget to move on and surround yourself with people who understand you despite your deficits. But of course, it's important that you are not toxic to people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know you're not toxic.
thank you, bro. So, going to a psychiatrist is extremely underrated, and our society has a tendency of scoffing at people who seek help related to mental health, but it's undeniable that your mind is the master of your whole well-being. And even if you're feeling so low as you have mental issues, like you are like the only person who's having this kind of problems, we need you to know that you're not alone.
Yes, you're not alone. So, we're very thankful for listening to this weekly podcast, which is about Gaslight.
Yeah. So if you have your own story to share with us, don't forget to comment down below. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.